Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. So today we're reviewing my progress through another rotation, the 12th rotation of the Cursed City of Sintranos, but we're also celebrating a big milestone because we have finally unlocked or achieved Carnage. But before we get to that, I do want to mention that it is officially the 1st of December, which means that Movember has officially come to an end, and I'm finally allowed to grow out my beard once again. Granted, it will probably take roughly 3 weeks or so because my hair growth is extremely slow. So the mustache appearance will remain for at least a couple more weeks' time. In addition, there was also the charitable component where I pledged to donate $2 for every subscriber joined to the Movember campaign, which does support men's health as well as research into prostate and testicular cancer. And the grand total gained for the month of November was 47. So I donated $94. You can probably see it somewhere on the screen here. But yeah, $94 on behalf of you guys. Like I said before, you guys don't have to donate on my behalf. We're just going to tie it to the number of subscribers gained for the month. And so $94 is for a great cause. It's always fun to kind of rock the mustache for 1 month out of the year before I return to my normal bearded state. So thank you to all of you subscribers, old and new, and hopefully you are enjoying and will continue to enjoy the content on the channel. I am still hoping to hit 1500 by the end of the year, but no pressure. Again, subscribe to the channel if you are enjoying the content. Now let's dive into my progress for this rotation of the Cursed City. And honestly, I'm going to leave it up to you guys whether or not I continue the series. It's been basically a year because there's been one rotation per month, and this is rotation 12. So it's been a year since it came out, it being the big update from the end of last year. And you can see here at the bottom that we have indeed achieved Carnage. And then I believe the milestones after this are just leveling him up for empowerment up to, I think, 5-star, maybe even 6. I'm not entirely sure. I don't recall, but at least definitely 5-star. But yeah, I don't really have any less motivation to still work on the Cursed City. That's basically where all of my like champion training champions are going to. All my 6-star champions are going to, unless I'm going to pull someone for PvE. But at this point, most of my teams are pretty darn set. Obviously, Chimera is coming up relatively soon. That's the end of this year's update, and so we'll kind of see what that holds in the future. And then maybe there's going to be some more champions to build for that one. But essentially, one of my big goals of doing the Cursed City is out of the way, that being unlocking Carnage. And then going forward, all I'm really looking for is just better pieces of Supersonic and or Merciless for certain builds in PvP and PvE. So like I said, you guys let me know in the comment section down below if you'd like me to continue the series kind of walking through the Soulcross hard stages, because that just happens to be where I am in the end game, and also just kind of highlighting the teams that you might be able to use, give you some inspiration for champions you might be able to use for certain stages if you wanted to build them. So rotation 12, how far did we get? We'll start it off with normal mode, where of course, as usual, I've completed all the stages, as we can verify here in the quests by having them all complete, including Amius. And then on hard mode, I have typically done the easier of the 3 locations, that being Cobble Market, Deadrise, and Plagueholm. And then I work my way as far as possible into hard Soulcross, fully expecting to get stuck at some point. I don't think I've beaten I don't think I've beaten every single stage possible, or we even reached every single stage possible. It just kind of depends which iteration of this particular stages shows up, and that dictates how far I can go on any given rotation, because it is randomized now. So I'll step through each of these stages on hard fairly quickly and just talk about what worked and what didn't work for the stages where I happened to get stuck. So stage 1, we've seen this one a few times now, but it's force attack, basically carried by Nishak, doing all the bomb damage, a little bit of control from Shatterbones and Fushan, who Fushan is notably unbooked, so he has he doesn't have a 100% chance to place the stun AoE. Basilisk is in a stun set, AoE on the A1, and then Ziichi, Doom Tower Epic Champion, who just does a little bit of damage, but is mostly just there as an accessory. Stage 2, this is the Spirit Attack one, where we have 2 champions, the Rares here in stun sets, and so they can do a little bit of stunnage. Yanaka is one of our primary DPS. Jingle Hunter is kind of a form of CC, because if he gets a kill with, I think, his A2, he gets an AoE freeze. And then Ferric and the Fat is ally attack, which again helps us do a little bit of damage, but also synergizes fairly well with the 2 stun sets that we have. And those stun sets are on those 2 Rares because of Doom Tower hard secret rooms, so it just kind of carried over the utility. Stage 3 here, magic attack, basically just threw together as many people as possible. Once again, 2 Rares and stun sets. These are from Doom Tower hard secret room builds as well. Dark Kale is in there because the AoE decrease attack, which just kind of helps us take a little bit less damage. And then Ninja is primarily CC in this capacity with the AoE freeze, and then Foley just kind of backing up as DPS. Stage 4 here, carried by Narces and Solus, a couple of Void Legendaries that I just happen to have. Skullcrown as well, is pretty decent DPS. Arbiter keeps everyone alive and running, and then a little bit of debuffing capability with the rare Dagger. For the Stage 5 Iron Twins, we have a couple of Brimstone farming champions here. So Brogni as well as Aostrid. Juhanarok is this, there's like a cleanser. A little bit of poison damage from my Mycelic Priest Ornn, and then just a fun DPS in Frolny. So primarily just Brimstone, but just throwing in a couple DPSs along the way. Stage 6 is most certainly a sticking point, but in this case, this is one of the rotations that is easier for me in particular. Morrigan helps us, go pretty quickly in terms of going first and lapping the enemy combatants. Ugo is our primary debuffer. Rodos is primary DPS, but he is backed up a little bit by Gizmak, who I'm fortunate enough to have. And then Lauren the Cutter just kind of thrown in there for a little bit of damage, as well as AoE heal reduction, which is kind of nice. But if all else fails, I think a lot of more people would probably be running Gore Grab. You have Dark Elhain up for grabs. You have Siege Hulk. So there's a lot of options a lot of people could use to beat this particular iteration of Stage 6. Stage 7, we have the crowd control duo of Vlad with the AoE block active skills, as well as Ethelyn the Golden, who also has AoE block active skills, with Thrala with the petrification as well. I guess trifecta of CC, little protection from Nekret, and then a primary debuffer with the Lydia. So just kind of alternating their control abilities to slowly whittle through the waves. We'll come back to S13 after S8, because this is also another can be another sticking point. But we have two epics in here, Stag Knight being our primary debuffer. We have Jingle Hunter making his return, Yannicka as well. Cod of the Rise, technically, somewhat accessible, or she was somewhat accessible as a guaranteed champion, but she's our reviver, cleanser type deal. But not Duck the Pierced, Dur the Hunger could definitely be that role as far as a support and a reviver. And then Lord Chazar, just because bombs are pretty decent damage against enemy waves and stuff. But that could also be like Gorleth Helma if you wanted to use that, for example. Stage 23, I have enough stars to do it, but they're not on like the champions I would really want to use to be able to beat the stage, and so this combination just isn't really cutting it, and just not able to break through, unfortunately. So I need more stars on better champions with a little bit more control and or a little bit more damage, and once that gets going, then the stage will probably be possible, but until then, kind of stuck. So kind of a sad state of affairs there, where I have the awakening to actually do it, but just not on the perfect champions to actually beat the stage. Stage 9, Sand Devil can always be a tricky one, but in this case we got to use the previous fusion champion of Aostrid as our primary just A1 sleep bot, which is kind of nice. Wretched Wrath is our primary like kind of face tanking support in order to at least tank the big AoE one time. After that, we basically kept him in a sleep loop that prevented him from ever doing it again. Then we had the other reviver, just because we want to revive as many people as possible. So Rector revives Ancora, Ancora revives other people, etc., and they kind of help each other go. And then we have Debuffer, Tomb Lord, and then DPS with Narcisse, just because. But again, the main success of this team is actually just having a sleep champion with the A1, and it's good enough for a fight like this where it's just kind of temporary, so that was kind of fun. Brimstone as well helps do a decent amount of damage. Stage 10 is various Void champions. We have a decent amount of control between Basher with the Lockout, as well as Coronar with the AoE Provoke, as well as him being in a Provoke set. Then we have a little bit of debuff and capability and healing from Riho Bone Spear. Then Genbo and Akemptum are our primary DPS for the stage, so a little bit of raw damage, a little bit of poison damage. Then we have the Nether Spider, and we basically have an HP Burn champion, Mordecai, carrying the team. HP Burn is strong for both of these bosses, Hard Mode, Ice Golem, as well as the Nether Spider. We have Doom Priest being our cleanser there, so a cleanser healer, protecting us a little bit from the poisons. Rector Wrath being our primary healer reviver. Glacea is primarily in there just because she can place block debuffs, which can protect us from the freezes from the Hard Mode Ice Golem, as well as the heal reduction, decrease defense. And then Wixwell is in there just because, protecting us from the poisons more so. The Intercept is not as crucial because, again, we had block debuffs up most of the time. But just having the shield there just kind of tanks some of the poison damage. So it's pretty nice. So Wixwell making his debut in the Cursed City. Stage 12 is up next, and this is a bunch of Spirit champions. So we have a couple of accessible ones. Obviously, most people should have Sun Wukong at this point. We have Cleopteryx, who is a daily log and reward champion, and then Varl, who you can get eventually from the Doom Tower on hard. So we have that trifecta of 3 free nuking champions. I happen to have Nogdar to throw in the mix as well, and then Nekmothar just to kind of keep the team running, but he's also in a Provoke set, primarily for Hydra, but it happens to help here that he gets to land the Provoke whenever the set procs on the enemy, so a little bit of control as well there. Stage 13, basically this is just carried by Gaius as our primary CC champion with the sleeps. The bombs are nice too, but primarily for the sleeps. And essentially, I just ran this until he happened to get to wave 3 and actually sleep both of the bad Alcazars, because weak hits kind of ruin it, and then they cleanse, and then you get feared, and a bunch of other bad stuff happens and you kind of die in a couple of seconds. So basically just iterating until we got the good RNG to land the sleeps on the both of the bad L's, and then everyone else, you can see here, our stun set champions are back in the mix, Foley as well, and then Rotos. So just doing damage, they're all magic, but yeah, basically carried by Gaius in terms of CC. Stage 16 here, once again using Vlad as our primary control, with the backup control being Umbral Enchantress, who can do the 2-turn provoke, which is really handy. DPS from the poisons from Urigrim, as well as the AoE HP burn and just raw damage from Skrank, and then Necrat again just to kind of protect people. And then last, for the ones that I could actually do, we have stage 25, which is essentially carried by Lady Mikage with her control ability. The buff strips is also helpful, but primarily just kind of the stuns, and then just slowly poisoning them down between Battle and Theodore. A little bit of turn meter manipulation with Deacon to kind of just keep us ahead, keep us healed, keep us poisoning them, keep us activating the poison with Theodore in this case, and Directed Wrath in case anyone happened to drop down, she could pick them back up. And then unfortunately for me, we hit the iron wall that stunted my progression. So stage 14, this one's always been annoying to me because you have a bunch of Force champions and you have to go against a starting wave that has 2 Cupid Eye and a Venus, meaning you get counterattacked into oblivion. You have to run stun sets if you don't have a hard form of CC, which I don't in this case, but I do have a stun set on Thylesia as well as one on Bowsmith Flannan. But, you know, I gave it like 10 to 20 goes of just trying to get the RNG to stun both of the Cupid Eye on the first wave before, you know, everyone dies to the counterattacks, and I just never got it to work. I never stunned both of them after like 20 goes, so I just kind of gave up. I just didn't feel like worrying about that. I don't know. Maybe it's something to work toward in the future. Maybe I have to rebuild Dithie here in a stun set as well. But yeah, it's just a pain in the butt. Didn't really feel like committing to trying to beat that one. Stage 20 felt kind of possible. The first wave is extremely annoying and I just haven't been able to get past it. And like there's a bunch of shielding champions, and because there's War Chief on the team, that means that if you hit into the shield, he has the Brogni passive where they start to heal up. So you basically negate any damage you've done if any of them get a turn. And then Bambus is the most annoying because we're negative affinity against him. And then he puts decreased accuracy out there, which means you can't land anything, which is basically GG in terms of controlling them, and so it's just a pain. But I do have the stun, AoE stun potential from Hoskrul. We do have AoE HP burn that's irresistible, which is kind of nice on Drang. We have the freeze potential from Blizzard the Howler, last year's Christmas fusion, but he is notably unbooked, so it's not 100% chance to place the freeze. And then a little bit of damage from Grush, healing and damage from Grush, and then damage from Shield Guard. But yeah, it does not really working out that well. Although what I'm thinking of doing in the future is actually taking out Shield Guard and just putting in Vala. I haven't built her just yet, but she does have an ability that can strip off shields and place decreased defense. Granted, it's not 100% chance to place decreased defense, but as I mentioned, stripping the shields would be pretty beneficial, but also just decreased defense could allow us to do a little bit more damage. So maybe next time this comes around, I might see 6-star her and see what she can do, if she can help us beat this stage. And then last but not least, we have hard mode Fire Knight, which just felt barely out of reach. We have an assortment of champions to try and help us beat this stage, but I just couldn't really get the shield down like consistently enough to really make it worth it. This stage really does feel like you need a Kreela Witch Arm, which would be Orcs in this case, and she would definitely do some work to help you break the shield. But I think we also have a pretty solid foundation for the future state, hopefully, where I happen to get Kreela. But we have the AoE reflect damage and then the counterattack from Angar, which is pretty nice. Reflect damage obviously counts as hits into the shield. I have the faultless defense blessing on Steel Skull, which allows us to use his increased defense as an additional source of reflect damage. So between the two of them, we have all 5 champions with 2 forms of reflect damage, which is pretty nice. So 10 hits into the shield on top of the counterattack from Angar, which is 12 hits. So it's a pretty solid foundation, but it's just there's not much else going out on top of that to really break through, which is kind of where I was falling a bit flat. Johanna is in the team just because she has increased speed, and then she also has decreased speed on the A1. So her spot could be maybe Haikatoon if I wanted to do a similar thing. We'd be adding in turn meter fill on top of the increased speed and then still have the potential for decreased speed on the A1, which could be nice. Also the speed ore to help us go a little bit faster. And then Sentinel, who I use from Dune Tower, Magma Dragon, Provoking. He happens to have heal reduction in his kit, even though it's not 100% chance. And then I kind of a little bit redundant, but you know, reflect damage, you can also get it from Mode Painted, but mainly she's in there to try and heal to counteract the destroying of max HP when he got turns. But again, the bigger problem was that we couldn't consistently keep the shield down in order to deal any damage at all, and so it's just kind of falling apart very quickly. So I don't know, something to try again in the future to see if we happen to get better champions suited for that particular fight. As far as Amius goes, I'll highlight the teams that I used for normal and hard mode, starting off with the hard mode variation. So this team I I've ran before and I didn't change any members on it this go around just because I didn't need to, but I'm always open to trying to experiment and see if there are champions who can run it a little bit faster, better, etc. But in this case, we have the support duo of Doom Priest and Pythion. So Pythion is our primary healer, reviver, and block debuff champion for the stun on Form 1. Then we have Doom Priest in there who can also deal with the stuns on Form 1 with just her passive and the cleansing. But also notably, she helps us on Form 2 because we get an extra turn in our cycling because she is able to purge the sleep a lot of the times. And so we can kind of cut in and get a little bit of healing from her passive just before the Amius does another AoE attack. We have Venomage in there, of course, as our heal reduction champion. Primary DPS is Newt, doing Newt things, and then secondary DPS and a little bit of healing when you use it strategically is Walking Tomb Drang. Obviously, when you do any cooldown reduction, reflex sets, merciless sets, refresh accessories, that's typically bad. But if you time it right on manual, of course, and you do it when he's already going to switch forms, then reducing the cooldown of his metamorph ability doesn't really do anything, and so you can use a heal at specific times in the fight when you already know he's going to change forms, so that heal can come in a little bit clutch. And then if we head on normal to normal mode for that variation of Amius, we can take a look at that team as well. We have Morrigan in there as our perma heal reduction champion. Just by her taking turns, she places a protected heal reduction debuff, so you can basically do whatever you want after that, regardless of his ability rotation, which is kind of nice. Nishak in there is our primary DPS. The bombs doing a lot of damage, the poisons that the bombs turn into doing damage, as well as a decreased attack protecting us a little bit. Rhodos in there because Rhodos, he's fun. Arbiter's in there as our primary healer, reviver, and then Tatura Rhymehide is the Pythion of this team, being our block debuffs champions to block the stun on Form 1. As far as champions built for the Cursed City for this rotation, there aren't any because everyone that I happen to use happened to already be built, but nonetheless a little bit of future proofing just for champions that I know are going to be useful in other iterations of the Cursed City. I'm working on an Eothar build, so he's going to be in 4-piece Merciless, and then I built Errol up in a really budget Savage set. So a couple of nukers that are probably going to see some play in future iterations of the Cursed City. So I'm not really going to deep dive on their builds because as you can see, they're not fully sended, so they're not really fully built just yet. And also I didn't really need them on any particular stage this go around. All right, so there you have it. That is my progression for rotation 12 of the Cursed City, and we have officially unlocked Carnage. I do not plan to collect him, at least in the near term. I'm going to save him for some sort of champion chase where he's going to be useful. Maybe the Christmas fusion, maybe some 2x in between this fusion and the next one. I'll kind of see, play it by ear. I don't necessarily intend to use him immediately, but his kit does give me a little bit of interest as far as being able to apply and spread potentially protected version of block passive skills. Now, polymorph could most certainly and will most certainly be a problem with that, but nonetheless, that could be a pretty useful skill going against Wukongs and or Marichkas and stuff like that. So even if you kill the target, it also will still spread the debuff. So you can kill a Wukong by placing block passive skills so he can't come back, and then you spread it on to everyone else who happens to be alive. So I'm intrigued by that possibility, so we'll see about that in the future. But other than that, once again, let me know in the comment section down below if you guys would like me to continue on with this series highlighting the Soulcross stages that I'm able to complete. And also let me know how far you guys were able to get in this particular rotation of the Cursed City. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel. And also, if you are enjoying the content, feel free to hit the subscribe button down below as well. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.